Hey everyone, Professor Schnarch just checking in. It's Friday before spring break, so two pieces of good news. My Florida Gators are in the Elite Eight, if you're following the basketball at all, and of course it's spring break, almost, right? Um, and I am just in our course here, so we've just finished up, Unit 4, which was due Thursday, and now we have really sort of time off for spring break, but it obviously doesn't affect us exactly the same way. Since Unit 5 is due Monday, April 4th. Check that date. Yeah, that's right. Um, but of course, you can be working on it, you know, at a fairly leisurely pace over the next week. And of course, it is due as soon as we get back, so you don't want to leave it until, Monday to look at it. And I'm just going to click myself into it here, Unit 5. This is a kind of an interesting unit because we return to a slightly more formal writing assignment, a little longer than the paragraph that we've done, but there's two kind of fundamental things that we're looking at for Unit 5. And there are two things that we separate out for this unit that we'll actually be kind of bringing back together for subsequent units, the more formal essays. So you're reading a story called Boys and Girls by Alice Munro, which is really interesting. Kind of look at gender roles and whether we're kind of inevitably biologically just going to become masculine versus feminine, or whether we're kind of enculturated into that, by the people around us. So it's this kind of nature versus nurture debate without being an obviously kind of preachy document about it. It's just this really interesting short story. Anyway, the assignments for this unit, the writing assignments, there's two of them. One of them is a summary of the story. And so this should be very easy. It's just summarizing basic points. Obviously, you're still attending to issues of organization, so it's not just one big, paragraph or a list of every single thing that happens in the story. You do want to pick the most important details and organize those in a sort of logical, a logical essay. But of course, for this essay or this summary, you're not presenting an interpretation or your opinion about this is good, this is bad, or the character is good or bad, or the people in the story are, well-intentioned or whatever. It's just summary. So it's almost like we want to be really far to the objective side of things, just reporting on what happens in the story. The other piece of this unit then is kind of like the opposite of that, the flip side of that. It's a discussion board where you're providing your response, much more of your kind of interpretation and opinion. So one of the things that I want you to focus on and kind of show me that you're getting here for Unit 5 is the difference between those two, and we've artificially separated them out. So we have the summary, which is just strict reporting on what happens in the story, and then your response, which is much more of that interpretive or evaluative kind of material. Ultimately, for later essays, we sort of bring these together because in the essay, you're providing not your opinion, but your interpretation of a story, or how like a theme is important or an idea is developed within the story. And then, of course, you're supporting that idea with details. So you're not summarizing the story, but you're certainly providing particular kinds of details that go to prove the points. So what we're doing in this early unit then is separating those two pieces out so we can really focus on them separately and see the differences and see how they kind of sound differently from each other, in preparation to kind of bring them a little bit back together when we actually get to the first full essay for the class, which is Unit 7. So again, as you're doing Unit 5, really think about the two writing assignments here, the discussion board and the summary. Think about showing me that you really get sort of those two ideas separately. So there shouldn't be I voice evaluation or interpretation in the summary, and the response or the discussion board is going to be much more of that kind of interpretation sort of thing. The other thing you want to be really careful of is if you feel the desperate need to look up secondary material on the story just to find out, other interpretations. Just be really careful not to include that. Don't plagiarize. It's really easy to catch these days, and you just want to be very careful with that. So in your own words, it shouldn't be any problem, but very objective. Just this is what happens, not it's good, it's bad, or anything like that. And it might actually feel really artificial, like you have to pull yourself away from doing that, but that's okay. That's the point of this exercise, and that's why when we get to the essay, you'll find it a lot more comfortable to be able to provide more of the interpretation. It's not I voice, but it's still interpretation, and then supported with detail. So it feels a little more natural once we bring these two back together in the essays that we're doing. Okay, so we do have a fairly long period of time to be working on Unit 5, but again, don't wait until spring break is over, and then you're stuck really with just basically a day to work on it. So we still do move pretty quickly in our 8-week course here. So I hope everyone does have a good spring break. Hopefully the weather improves. Pretty chilly right now, but if you have any questions about anything that we've done or any of the future stuff, be sure to be in touch.